The desert highway shimmered beneath the unforgiving sun, and the only sound cutting through the stillness was the deep, rumbling thunder of a pack of bikers cruising in formation. They looked fierce, leather vests, patches, tattoos, and faces carved by years of hard living. But none of them expected that within seconds, their entire world would tilt when a terrified little boy sprinted toward them, screaming with a desperation that froze even the toughest among them in place. His small face was red with tears, his breath broken by sobs, and his shaking hands reached out as if clinging to the last hope he had left. Behind him, in a dusty old car, a baby lay motionless. In that instant, every biker felt something shift in the air, a moment where instinct, fear, and fate collided. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity still existing in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories like this to life. The boy stumbled toward the bikers, nearly falling as he tried to explain between sobs that his baby sister wasn't breathing. His voice cracked with a helplessness that pierced straight through the intimidating shell the bikers wore. The leader, a broad, gray-bearded man with steady eyes, knelt down and placed his huge hand gently on the boy's shoulder. In that moment, he wasn't a biker, wasn't a symbol of fear, he was simply a human being confronted with a child's raw terror. The boy's clothes were dusty, his hair matted from dried sweat, and his chest heaved as he struggled to speak. But his eyes, wide, filled with grief and absolute panic, said everything. The bikers exchanged quick glances, and without hesitation, they rushed toward the old car. The heat inside the vehicle was stifling. The baby girl, barely a few months old, lay limp in the back seat, her tiny chest unmoving. A faint blue tint shadowed her lips. The leader's hands trembled for just a second, because even for a man who had lived through violence, hardship, and loss, there was nothing more terrifying than the stillness of a child. But then instinct took over. He reached in, lifted the fragile infant with incredible care, and carried her into the open air. One biker called for water, another dialed emergency services, and another shielded the boy so he wouldn't see too much. The leader placed 2 fingers gently on the baby's chest and began controlled compressions, every motion precise, steady, and filled with an urgency that made the others hold their breath. The little boy clung to the arm of one of the bikers, shaking uncontrollably. He whispered through tears that he and his sister had been left in the car by someone who was supposed to watch them. The details were unclear, but the pain in his voice was unmistakable, fear of losing the only family he had left in the world. The biker holding him wrapped an arm around him, surprising even himself as a protective instinct surged inside him. The boy pressed his face into the biker's vest, sobbing as if the world was collapsing beneath him. Meanwhile, the leader continued compressions, breathing life toward the baby with quiet determination. The bikers, who were used to the sound of engines, wind, and speed, now stood in a silence so heavy it felt like time itself had paused. Seconds stretched into a lifetime. Each breath the leader tried to push into the baby felt like a prayer. Sweat dripped from his forehead, landing on the baby's tiny shirt. The bikers behind him held their heads low, hands clasped, hoping for something, anything, to change. The little boy whispered his sister's name under his breath like a fragile plea. Finally, just as the leader began to fear he was too late, the baby's body jolted faintly. A soft gasp escaped her, followed by a weak cry that spread through the air like a miracle breaking the tension. The leader froze for a moment, stunned. And then he exhaled deeply, relief washing over him as the baby's cries grew louder, stronger, warmer, full of life. The boy screamed in disbelief and sprinted toward his sister. The biker holding him lifted him just enough so he wouldn't stumble, letting him reach the baby safely. When the boy saw his sister crying, he collapsed to his knees, sobbing with overwhelming relief. The leader placed the baby carefully back into her brother's arms, steadying both of them. The bikers who moments ago looked like wolves on the road were now standing with softened faces, fighting to hide the emotion swelling in their eyes. The entire group formed a protective circle around the siblings, as if shielding them from the world that had failed them so badly. When the ambulance finally arrived, the paramedics confirmed that the leader's quick action had saved the baby's life. The bikers watched silently as the children were checked, their hearts pounding with leftover adrenaline and a sense of pride they rarely felt so deeply. The little boy clung to the leader's arm, refusing to let go, thanking him between sobs. The paramedics, moved by the scene, asked what had happened. But the bikers didn't need praise, they didn't want attention. They simply wanted the children safe. When they learned the situation the siblings had been living in, something ignited inside them, a fierce resolve to ensure these kids would never be abandoned again. The bikers followed the ambulance to town, staying close like guardians of the road. They coordinated with authorities, offered support, and made sure the siblings had everything they needed for the night: food, warmth, and a sense of safety they had been missing for far too long. And when the little boy looked up at the leader, asking if he would still be there tomorrow, the man felt something deep inside him shift. He nodded without hesitation. Toughness wasn't measured by how loud your engine roared, it was measured by how fiercely you protected those who needed it most. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling meaningful stories that remind the world that compassion still exists. Before you go, comment below, kindness still matters. And with that, the bikers, once seen as intimidating, became the unexpected heroes of a moment that defied belief, proving that sometimes the roughest exteriors guard the gentlest hearts.